Hello, this is Brandon Cassiano with Cassiano Creative. Today we're going to go over some of the practices I find very useful when you begin to work on a video podcast. And those are going to be audio lineup when working with a multi-angle video podcast, and then unlinking camera audio to make sure that all you have in the post and final product is going to be that crisp, clear microphone audio. So let's begin. So we're going to use footage and audio from an episode of Casual Babble, my podcast that's already been produced, but for the sake of showcasing what I like to do in setup, we're going to use that footage again. So when you have audio coming from both two different cameras and from a more high-tech audio recorder, Zoom recorder, Rode, Cast, whichever it is, you want to put in that audio first. Now, always want to check and make sure that your audio recorder can record in multi-track if possible, because oftentimes what's going to save you a lot of time in post-production is being able to visually see where each person spoke during the podcast. But first thing I'm going to pull in is going to be the stereo mix, which will be all the buses, all the microphones into one file. So as you can see from this visual, there isn't really any obviousnness as to who is speaking when, but thankfully we have mics 1 and 2 that we can also add into this session here. Mic 1 is what yours truly was on, so mic 1. As you can see pretty immediately, you can tell where I spoke. No question about that. And then what we'll do next is line up where my guest on mic 2 spoke. And as you can see, where I spoke and where they spoke pretty much fit together like a puzzle. So that's going to, again, help you tremendously in post-production to line up the audio from the cameras and make sure that you are able to cut the video for your L cuts, J cuts, and hard cuts pretty easily. What we're going to do now is we're going to actually move these down a bus. I'll actually create another track. And move everything down one more bus just to give us enough room for the 2 bits of audio from the cameras. So now let's go ahead and import. So let's grab camera 1 for myself. And now we want to identify where in the audio we should start in general. Now I have a little opening that I do for my podcast. So what I like to do is look for the moment that I begin that opening and create a moment where that is obvious. So I think it's around here.
Hello, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show.
And there's the opening there. So what I'm going to do is crop this video over to this little moment before the opening right there. Now, what I want to do is identify that moment in the base audio. So in here,
Clinical and
believe it's right
perfect.
Here.
Hello, you beautiful individual.
And there it is. Now, keep in mind, because these are all from the same recording device, they're all going to be automatically lined up. So there's no need to concern yourself with making sure these are lined up as well. Just have to make sure that this audio in general is lined up with the camera audio. So we found the opening part in the microphone audio. Gonna move this over and then zoom in just a bit more. As you can see, there's a bit of a dip in this right before my opening here. We're going to look for that same dip here, which is right there. And we're going to attempt to line it up. There's a bit of an extra dip here, and that's right before I actually begin speaking my intro. So we're going to line that up. Highlight all these. And then we're even going to start clipping this so we can see it more easily. And then zoom in hard, kind of hardcore here to really find that spot. I think that's just about perfect. We'll zoom in just a bit more. Want to move it over just like 1 millisecond more, maybe 2. And then see how that sounds together.
Hello, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. My name.
And as we can hear, that audio is pretty much not perfectly lined up. So we'll go ahead and finish this kind of crop over here. Line it up with the beginning of the video that we have. And we'll work from here. Now, one thing you might want to you want to do from here is then line up the audio from your guest camera. And just as with the first camera, we're going to look for the same moment where I begin my intro and move from there. Now, if you've done this a couple of times, you'll begin to kind of visually locate it. I believe it's right in this moment here. So we'll single out this audio and double check it.
Perfect. Hello, you beautiful individual.
And that's where it is. So we'll go ahead and crop back a little bit to right before that moment again. And do as we did before, zoom in pretty tightly so we can line it up as best as possible. There is that dip from before. And this might already be pretty perfectly lined up. So let's go ahead and solo it and listen out.
Perfect. Hello, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show.
You can hear a slight dissonance, so it's not perfectly lined up. So let's see if we can amend that just a little bit. Maybe move it back 1 millisecond if possible. Not always easily done depending on where things are placed, but we'll see how it looks here. So one more time.
Hello, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. My name is...
And you can hear that dissonance has now lessened, so this is likely the most perfect we can get this lined up audio. So now we will treat this as the proper starting point for the entire project. Now, depending on the kind of video that you're using or the kind of camera that you're using for recording this podcast, you may find that there is a slight glitch or kind of misalignment when you put the video files back to back. I'm using GoPros here. Sometimes the GoPros may have a moment where they skip a couple seconds, so you have to make sure that the other camera covers those seconds. Different GoPro cameras will record at slightly different intervals, so you'll see those changes on and off. Other times you may find that if you're using something like an SJ camera, it may actually cut one segment and then the next file will start a few seconds before the end of the first. So you have to cut back the audio a little bit before you line it up perfectly. Now that we have these lined up pretty much perfectly with the microphone audio, what I like to do from here, and if we imagine that I've already put in all the other files with the other cameras, what I will do is highlight the camera files, right click and unlink. This will allow me to rid myself of the camera audio, which is not quite as nice as you heard, and then move up the microphone audio, making sure it's still nice and lined up. And then from here, we have the camera's quality visually, but the microphone crisp audio quality.
Hello, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. My name is BC Babbles, and you're joining me again on Casual Babble, the delve into the culture of the young professional.
And that's how I like to line up audio for a video podcast. Now again from here, because we have both microphone 1 and microphone 2 as separate tracks, what we can actually do pretty easily here is visually tell where I should cut the audio. So moving into my razor tool, I will look at where I stop talking and where she starts talking, lining it here and there, lining it up here, giving her a moment here, maybe a couple moments back to back. Now I'm doing this really fast only because I've been doing video podcasting for a couple of years, so I'm used to doing this kind of relatively quickly. So we've done some cuts. Let's go ahead and just keep in mind these two right next to each other are the same one, and these two farther apart are the same one for that particular camera. So let's cut here, 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 kind of back and forth. Again, this lets you do these things pretty quickly once you get into the groove of this kind of editing, and then see how it looks.
Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you.
How
I'm so
are you
happy
doing?
to be here. Fantastic on a Saturday morning.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Nothing like Saturday morning. How was your week?
My week is busy. I am currently...
And as we can see, because we followed where everyone's speaking on mic 1 and mic 2, we're able to pretty quickly cut the camera and make sure we have pretty crisp L cuts and J cuts that'll be there for the final product. As you can see, we do need to change the scale for the videos to make sure they match the display. So we'll just kind of go up here to effect controls, Go to scale. I'll make myself a bit larger here, and then I'll move the camera up a bit so it looks a bit more professional angle. Same thing for my guest. Effect controls, up the scale just a bit, and she's pretty much spot on, so we'll leave her here. I do like to put some post-project graphics in here to give some information on the guest, so I will move her over just a bit so I can make room for graphics over here. And that is how I begin and set up a video podcast production session.